So here we are, pretty much at the end of the season for Alton Towers in 2024, and I've visited the park a few times over the year, and mostly good experiences. However, I've found a few problems that I've come across, and looking around on social media, it seems like a lot of people are saying the same things. I've had some amazing days, one day in particular in September, probably the best time I've had there in years, but I noticed that some things just didn't sit right. Now, maybe I'm a bit spoiled after visiting Disney World and Universal Orlando Resort earlier in the year, but Alton Towers definitely has some issues this year. And don't get me wrong, this isn't me bashing the place. I love Alton Towers. I go as often as I can, but it's a bit like telling your kid, I'm not mad, just disappointed. And that hurts so much more. Alton Towers has so much potential, and I just want to see it reach that potential and be the best park it can be. So with that, let's dive into the 4 big problems that I've noticed at Alton Towers and how they can be fixed.
Smile, always.
At a surface level, Alton Towers looks pretty clean and tidy. But if you dare to look harder and concentrate a bit, you can see that there are a lot of small maintenance issues. Just small things like worn, faded, peeling paint, loose paving blocks, missing or broken bits of wooden barriers and fences around the queues. And it's just all those little things that add up and seem to suggest that there's an overall lack of care and lack of attention to detail. I really wish I'd got some photos or videos of these things to show you, but anyone who's familiar with Alton Towers, you must have seen these. You can't go a whole day without seeing something. And I think that's one of the issues, but the other is what appears to be a general lack of care and attention on some of the rides. Just have a look through CBeebies Land, and to be honest, it's pretty shocking, really. Look at the Postman Pat ride. Most of the time I've been on that with my little ones, the buttons in Pat's van don't work, or the animatronics don't move, or the animatronics don't make any sound. And that's kind of the whole point of the ride on that one. It's an interactive ride for really small ones, and if that doesn't work, it's not a great experience for them. And the In the Night Garden boat ride, well, to be fair, I don't think I've ever been on that ride where everything is working. Last time I went on that, there was no audio from the boat, the first animatronic, the Ninky Nunk, didn't work, the Tombly Boos were broken, Upsy Daisy wasn't working, and Iggle Piggle was just kind of barely moving his arm. And it was pretty embarrassing, to be honest. We had a couple on the row in front of us, and they just looked completely confused by it at all. It turns out that was the first time they'd been on the ride, and they were very confused until I pointed out that there's supposed to be a lot more going on, and it's just broken. In terms of ride maintenance, the worst one for me, and it pains me to say it as well, is the Smiler. Now, I have 2 separate issues with the Smiler this year. The first is that it seems to have a 50-50 chance of you getting a ride where it absolutely bashes your brains in. I don't know if it's certain trains or certain rows or seats, but sometimes I feel like I've been in a boxing match, which annoys me because I love the ride so much. It's definitely, at least in my opinion, the best coaster in the UK, and it's probably my number 2 coaster in the world. So that shows you how much I feel about it and how much it pains me to say these things. Now, luckily, last time I went on it, my ride was super smooth, like butter, absolutely amazing. Probably the best ride I've had on it in years. But some of my friends complained that they were shaken about. Same train, same row, just different seats, obviously. The second thing that I hate about the Smiler, and my friends have said that once I told them this, I've ruined the ride for them because they can't unknow this now, but the Smiler stinks. And I'm talking about that foam material on the restraints, the ones right next to your face. They've obviously had sweat and been damp for years, and they just smell rank. It smells like they've been soaked in sweaty gym socks for weeks. I'm sure that is the smell of bacteria. That can't be hygienic. That has got to be a health and safety hazard. Now, to fix the minor maintenance issues, They need to look for these issues and fix them as they appear. Don't wait until the park closes for the season and do it over the winter. From my perspective, they could hire just one person and their sole job would be to go around the park, find these bits and fix them there and then. Repaint little bits, fix the fences, stick the slabs back down, replace anything that needs replacing. It would just smarten the whole park up just that tiny little bit. And at the minute, it just looks amateurish and unprofessional. Alton Towers has to invest in keeping the animatronics and rides working as they're intended. The things in CBeebies Land, and they're not the only rides, they're just the examples, but it's not acceptable. Can you imagine going to Disney World, going on It's a Small World, and none of the dolls are singing and dancing? Although, to be fair, I suspect there's probably a lot of people out there that would prefer that ride. However, I'm not one of them. But please, Alton Towers, if you ever hear anything, I'm begging you, just please, 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 sort out the restraints on the Smiler. Either give them a proper clean, and if that doesn't get rid of the smell, just replace them because it is rank.
Smile, always.
Alton Towers has always had some really great ideas around theming the rides. Look back to Nemesis in 1994, then Oblivion, Air, which is obviously now Galactica, I'm just showing my age, 13, The Smiler, Wicker Man. Each one has improved on the theming and immersion. Just taking Wicker Man, for example, we've now got a roller coaster with a pre-show. Now, that's pretty much unheard of in this country. The problem for me is that the theming only seems to exist within the ride queue, and for some, only within really the loading station and the actual ride. Now, I'm going to give credit where it's due. Alton Towers did step up the theming for Nemesis Reborn. They've added some great set pieces around the queue and across Forbidden Valley. And I think the actual creature with the eye is absolutely wonderful. This is how they need to get the rest of the park. One of my examples is X Sector. You've got the Smiler and it's got, you know, fantastic contrast and yellow and black psychedelic patterns. And then right next door, you've got Oblivion, which is black and grey and it's got a tiny little logo in orange. And they're in the same land, but they don't look related to each other at all. There's no consistency in the theming across. At least in the Dark Forest, Rita was rethemed to kind of make it spookier and fit in more. I'm not a fan of that because it doesn't seem to really make sense to me, but at least it's in keeping with the theme of the land. Just everything seems a little bit disjointed, and you can tell that the lands weren't planned out. They've just added bits to it and cobbled things together over the years without really thinking about the theme element of a theme park. That extends outwards into the car park as well. I mean, let's face it, it is a long walk from where you park to the main gates. If you choose to walk, obviously. But there's nothing there to make it seem special or immersive. It's just kind of a dusty and muddy track with basically no lighting at all. There should be a big build-up of energy so that when you finally get to the front entrance, you're pumped up and you just want to run in and run to the first ride. At the end of the day, walking back to the car, it should evoke all those memories from the day. I think the part which does this brilliantly is Universal Orlando Resort. That's also a long way from the entrance to the parks through City Walk and then to the car park. But you go down that and there's theme music playing and there's pictures and videos and there's things to look at. It's exciting. Alton Towers just isn't. Okay, so some of the areas need a makeover. I think new theming, new overlays. The one that I thought of is imagine if the Smiler and the Ministry of Joy took over X Sector. Repaint and retheme Oblivion, black and yellow. New Smiler type music. Creepy, hypnotical videos in the queue. Maybe, you know, some strange people dressed up from the Ministry of Joy in the queue. The ride is exactly the same, except just before you go down the drop, you hear "Smile, always." And then you drop into the hole filled with smoke and yellow lights. Then on the way back to the loading station, you just have ha 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 ha. And you've got big screens with the black and white, you know, hypnotic patterns going around. How much better would that be? I mean, even a worst case scenario and you don't want to put any more money into it like that, just bring back the don't look down before you drop. That was iconic. And now it's just nothing. I think a new story for Rita where it kind of makes sense would be good. Make it about the Wraiths from 13 using a spell to catapult you out the forest or something, but put the story into the queue so that you're invested in it when you get onto the ride. I think Tower Street, when you come into the park, is boring. It needs something to elevate it up, some shops, some flags, lights, characters. Make it look, I'm not saying the same kind of standard, but make it like Main Street USA in Disneyland. Make it like Diagon Alley. Just do something. It's just boring at the minute. I think Galactica and the Roller Coaster Restaurant, their positioning is a bit weird at the bottom of the Forbidden Valley. I think it needs something there to almost separate it and make that into a new land, or incorporate the outside into the Nemesis theme. And I gotta say, just on the subject of Nemesis Reborn again, I absolutely love what they have done with it. It's fantastic. The queue is much better. Some of the set pieces are amazing. I think the ride is smooth, intense. It's like it's brand new. I do miss the reddy pinky water, but that's kind of from a nostalgic point of view. The thing that's making it miss it for me, and it's just that tiny little cherry on top that would just elevate it slightly more, is that it needs on-ride music. If it had like the Nemesis theme as the on-ride audio, it would just be absolutely top tier. The walk from the car park needs something doing to it. It needs some lights for a start. There should be music playing at the very least, like different ride themes, something to get you pumped up. I think it'd be great to add games to the Alton Towers app. This would help in the queues to pass the time. You can fill it with trivia and quizzes about the park or other Merlin attractions. Put rewards on there for interacting, like finish this quiz and get £5 off a return visit, or you can enter to win free parking for the day or something like that. Just something to add to the immersion.
Smile, always.
Theme park food in the UK has always been very meh. It's usually overpriced, it's pretty basic because, let's be honest, you're stuck with no other options, so you're kind of a captive audience. But come on, Alton Towers. It's 2024. Food at the theme park should be part of the experience now. And I know I keep going back to it, but look at Disney, look at Universal. Some of their stuff is absolutely fantastic. A lot of people go there just to try the new foods. Case in point, I was super excited earlier in the year to check out Oktoberfest. I grabbed a pint, no complaints there to be fair, and then I decided to treat myself to one of the new foods, the pizza pretzel. Well, what a disappointment. To say it was awful is an understatement. It was dry, tasteless, and had no sauce. How can you call it a pizza with no sauce? Pizza pretzel. Sounds obvious. It should be a pretzel, tomato sauce, cheese, at the very least. This was pretzel, grated cheese that didn't melt, and some weird, slimy pepperoni things. Rank. It didn't help that the fact that there were wasps everywhere. Not ideal when you're trying to eat. Last time I went, I decided to go and try the roller coaster restaurant for the first time. Been dying to go for years, never got round to it. And I tell you what, the concept is awesome. The idea is fantastic. The theming is pretty good. The food, very, very meh. Average at best. Mine, I kind of had a chicken with like a cheese on top, but the weird lighting on our table made the melted cheese look like raw chicken. Not very appetizing if you ask me. No one else's food was particularly fantastic either, just very average with an inflated price. The roller coaster restaurant needs a refresh. Just update the theming, fix a lot of the branding, which I found a lot of out-of-date references. Some I get, you had references to the corkscrew in there. Yes, it's kind of an old iconic ride, I get it. But there's also things like Sonic Spinball, Air, and for the love of all things delicious, please improve the food. It doesn't have to be fancy over the top, but at least make it nice. I think they need to create a better experience for food across the entire park. They need themed snacks and drinks that people actually look forward to. I did see that there were some ridiculously expensive Nemesis donuts, and there was a Nemesis beer in a can as well. But where's all the bits for Oblivion, for Smiler, for Galactica? Each of those big core rides should have its own bits. I know they've got a place just outside the Curse at Alton Manor, and there's some nice themed snacks there. That's kind of the way they need to go with everything. But there needs to be more places like that. I mean, I would say do what the American theme parks do. Have standard options available at most places so that you get the consistency and, you know, the quality level up, and then have some unique things at each place as well. Snacks should look amazing and taste great. Copy ideas from other parks. Have coloured and flavoured popcorn, different ice creams, cupcakes, donuts. Change them seasonally. Make it so that people have a hard choice on deciding what they want to try every time they visit. Have some unique options as well, like open up a slushie shop, kind of like Fat Tuesdays if you know that in America. Have alcohol slushies, kids slushies, have a themed bar somewhere, get an IP if necessary, or use something Alton Towers related. You know, make it pirate themed in Mutiny Bay, or make a roller coaster bar, have different themes in different sections of the bar. Have a Smiler section which is all black and yellow, or Nemesis which is red and black. Make all the drinks ride related, share it with the restaurant, redo the cocktails. The cocktails in the restaurant were pretty terrible. If I went back and all these things were there, I'd be getting a couple of snacks, at least one cocktail, a meal at the end of the day, and that'd be me spending a lot more money than normal. And I wouldn't be the only one. And as it stands now, eating at Alton Towers seems to be a chore, and it's a case of what's the least worst option where I'm not going to get completely ripped off. It should be the highlight of the day. I think just on that point, I would have some sort of restaurant or takeaway place at the front entrance. The amount of people I see leaving the park and they're trying to decide whether to get a terrible hot dog or stop at the McDonald's on the way back or just not eat altogether until they get home. It's just such missed opportunities for more money and more experiences.
Smile, always.
And now we come to the elephant in the room, ride operations. Now, I know all theme parks have downtime on rides due to either delayed openings, early closures, weather closures, safety concerns, and I totally get all that. But it seems like more and more that Alton Towers, especially this year, are having real issues keeping their rides open. Last time I went, I kept a pretty close eye on the app so I knew where to head next, and there was basically always at least one of the big rides shut. And it seemed like just when that opened, another big ticket ride went down. Now it may just be a really big coincidence, but it happened all day consistently. And on that day, Wickerman didn't open for the whole day, which is a bit disappointing. And I know it's cynical, but it just seemed like because it wasn't a particularly busy day, they were cost cutting and not running all the rides. To be honest, that's just not on from a customer's perspective. I've paid full price for a ticket. I want all the rides to be available. Simple as that. I spoke with a lovely guy when I was there, and he was saying that he'd actually visited again on that day with free tickets, along with free fast passes, because he'd visited earlier on in the year and basically couldn't get on anything due to ride downtimes. And to be honest, he wasn't having a much better day when I spoke to him. He said every time he went into the fast pass queue, the ride then closed. So I spoke to him at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he'd managed to get on one ride. One. Now, can you imagine being at the park for 5 hours and only getting to go on one ride, along with the fact that you've actually got fast passes as well, and the fact that this is the second time that he'd visited and had issues like that? I'm not even sure that I would be angry or furious or anything like that. I think I'd just be fed up and I'd go home. Now, looking around on social media, this seems to be the biggest complaint with Alton Towers is rides closing either on and off or just not opening at all. And like I said before, this is not something that's acceptable for a theme park to do. If I go to a theme park, I want to go on all the rides. I know sometimes things close for longer, like Nemesis did for Nemesis Reborn. Not got a problem with that. But when something just closes and that's it, it's not good enough. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there are 2 possible causes for this problem. One, it's been done on purpose to save money, or 2, this is actually a byproduct of cheaping out on maintenance. If it's been done on purpose to save money and it's deliberate, then you know what? Arrange it beforehand, have some delayed openings for some areas. For example, don't open the Dark Forest until 11 or close X sector at 4. I know a lot of parks do this, but make it known. That way you set the expectation so you know you don't have people going over to one side of the park to then be disappointed. If it isn't deliberate and it's down to cheaping out on maintenance, then Merlin needs to stop pinching pennies if it's causing downtime. More money needs to be spent keeping the rides operational for the whole day. Spend it on staff or more experienced staff, or replace consumables more often. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Now, I get sometimes things are out of anyone's control. But again, manage expectations. I noticed that the app does mention if a ride is closed due to weather. Great. But, for example, Wicker Man was closed all day and he just had the bog standard closed message. If you know it's going to be closed all day, say it will be closed all day. It stops people getting their hopes up and, again, manages expectations. Quick example of how the experience was for a couple of the closures that I experienced. Went to the Curse at Alton Manor. Absolutely lovely lady at the front doors. She told us that it was temporarily closed as one of the ride vehicles had basically gone into the section of another vehicle. So the computer automatically stopped it for health and safety reasons. Fine. She said they'd just got to get everyone off, move the cars through and basically reset the whole ride. She says it usually takes about 10 to 15 minutes, but there's no guarantee that there's not going to be another issue that crops up that's going to then make it longer. And that's perfect. I know what's going on. I know how long it's likely to take. I know that there's a risk it might take longer, and I get to make the choice of whether I stay there or go somewhere else. That's fantastic. However, before that, I got stuck at Spinball Whizzer, right next to the loading station, and the experience there was the complete opposite. It was someone who didn't seem to really care. They said they don't know what's wrong, don't know how long it's going to be, and they kind of just said that a few times. After about 20 minutes of same old, they said there was an electrical storm in the area and all rides at Alton Towers would close, so there's no point going anywhere as you wouldn't be able to get on anything. Not their fault about the electrical storm, can't control that, not got a problem. But the part about all the rides being closed was categorically not true. In fact, I overheard someone else and decided to leave the line and walked over to the runaway mine train and got on that no problems. Choo choo. Then went over to the Curse at Alton Manor, which is where I met the previous nice lady. It's all about expectations. I expect the ride to be open if I pay for a ticket. Merlin or Alton Towers needs to do what they need to do to keep those rides open. I accept that downtime does happen, but when it does, give people accurate and correct info rather than leaving people in the dark or stating things that aren't true. But above all else, spend money to keep the rides open. That is their whole reason for being there, is rides and experiences. If you go there and don't get that, you will be disappointed. I know this video might sound a bit negative, and it really isn't meant to be, a big dig at Alton Towers or Merlin or any of the staff there at all. And weirdly, I think it's kind of in the best shape it's ever been. But like I said at the beginning, I've had some really fantastic days here this year, and I still think it's the best theme park in the country. I just feel like they're starting to get close to getting towards that next level, and it just frustrates me that there are basic things that could be done to sharpen the place up and for them to improve the experience and ultimately for them to make more money. And to be honest, I think Alton Towers are going to have to start up in their game if and when Universal Studios GB or UK or whatever it's called actually comes to fruition. I think they're going to have a big shock with the quality of that park and the difference in the league between them. Although, to be honest, I kind of think that Universal Studios in this country would be more of a competitor to Disneyland Paris rather than any of the UK-based parks, at least for now, unless they really pump investment into it. So I've had a bit of a long rant about Alton Towers. I'm interested to know, what would you change about Alton Towers to try and get it to the next level? Or what things have you found really frustrating with Alton Towers this year? What are you hoping that they're going to do next year to change that, to go that extra mile and actually have a good year? I'm just praying that their operations jumps up a level in the next year, because I know I've kind of gone on about the food and the drink and the theming and everything, but ultimately the big one is ride operations. If you can't keep your rides open, your park's not going to stay open for very long. Let me know what changes you'd make to Alton Towers to get it to the next level. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you out there.